I'd like to now introduce our keynote speaker for this morning, Jamal Ahamad. Jamal is an amazing educator, currently teaching ninth grade English language arts and African American studies at Taconic High School. He also runs his own multimedia company where he provides filming and editing services for dance and arts venues, weddings, and business profiles. Jamal is also a very talented dancer, choreographer, and multimedia designer, and is an alumni from MCLA, where he received both his bachelor's and master's degrees. And I had the wonderful privilege of being able to work with Jamal when he served as the GED instructor at our Career Center, helping our young people get back on track and reach their goals. So it's an honor to have you here with us today, Jamal, to address our students. And now I will turn it over to you.
Wow, I really did all those things. That's crazy. Even crazier that I'm kind of nervous for this morning because I present on a daily basis to my students, but presenting to this group, to some professionals in their area and some students that I have yet to meet. I don't know. I guess I'm a little nervous. I do have a question. I have a presentation to go along with my keynote. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
What? Okay, so I'm gonna do the whole remote teacher thing and ask you, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so everyone, I really wanted to put a piece of myself into this presentation. I know for me, I can't speak for everyone, but I know for me that sometimes when I get asked about my career, I tend to get dry when I talk about logistics, although there's nothing dry or boring about what it is that I do. It's just that I needed some kind of aid to help me tell my story. And if you get the references, you do. And if you don't, you're probably going to be a little lost. So I'll do my best to explain. But right here, what we are looking at is a pivotal moment in one of my all-time favorite pieces of media. This is Dragon Ball Z, and this is Goku, the main character, as he arrived on Namek to rescue his friends and to save the universe at large. And when he did so, he arrived wearing a new kanji that has his own name on it. And Goku actually stands for enlightened and or wisdom. And the reason why I wanted to open with this and the reason why I'm using this as like the core of my visuals and what I want to talk about is because actually last summer, I don't know if you can see it, but I got that kanji, Goku, wisdom, enlightened, tatted to myself. And I know that might be to the chagrin of some of my fellow professionals in here to flaunt one of my tattoos, but I feel like for the career that I'm in and for what it is that I'm doing, it's a constant reminder of how I got here, why I'm here, and where it is that I'm headed. So as we go through this presentation, I just got to tell you is that I've done quite a few things, as you've heard in the presentation, in the opening, right? Here's what it is that I am experienced in, and all of these things, each one of these things, they have all contributed to where it is that I am today. And what I learned about pursuing a career, especially in that of teaching, is that I have to use every single tool at my disposal in order to do my job effectively. And it's not just because I want to be great at my job. I feel that anyone who goes into a job who gets paid to do something, they want to work at it and they want to be great because you want to put some pride into what it is that you do, whatever it is that you do, right? But for me, the reason why I try to use every single thing that I've learned is because there are lives at stake with what it is that I do. And I know that might sound hyperbolic, but let's not forget that many young people spend so much of their time in schools, arguably more time in school than they do at home. And on top of that, um, teaching's just a tough gig. You come in contact with a lot of people. you're servicing not just young people, but in extension, you're servicing their families. And by extension of that, you're servicing the community. So for me, anytime that I can tap into any one of these things that I've experienced, it just makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel like I've done something right and that I've leveled up and that I came in to be my unique self every single day. What's interesting though is that my journey to having these experiences and to having these tools wasn't so great. And the reason why is because when I was younger, um, as a child, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Here's a list of all the things I wanted to do. And I know that it might sound funny, but God, I wanted to be a professional wrestler so bad. My siblings and I, we all used to stay up late on school nights to catch WWF, not WWE. We used to stay up late to catch WWF Raw. And summers when we were at the beach were designed for putting on shows for spectators. But I never got tall enough. It just wasn't for me. I can't be a professional wrestler at 5'8". And then I wanted to be a comic book artist just because I loved cartoons. I love storytelling. And then when I started pursuing that, there were just so many steps that I wasn't aware of. After for those of you who don't draw, or for those of you who don't know much about cartooning or animation or traditional media, is that after the penciling process, you touch it up and then you ink it. And then after you ink it, you erase it. And then after you do that, you scan it in. And then after you scan it in, you do line art. And after you do line art, you color it. And then you do highlights. And then you do rendering. And that's just for one image. And for me, I just couldn't keep up with the tech and it was way too much, but I still loved it. In terms of dancing, when I was in college, growing up, I know that I'm a dancer now. I'm a dance teacher. I'm a dance performer. Couldn't dance to save my life growing up. And it was something that I wanted to learn how to do. And I really fell in love with it and I wanted to keep doing it. In terms of the writing and being an author, is that I've always excelled at English language arts, which is interesting because now I'm an English language arts teacher. And when I got into college, I wasn't too sure what I was doing, but my professors told me that I could write. And it was then that I started thinking, well, maybe I could do something with this, because in high school, the only thing that writing ever equated to at the time was good grades. And I just couldn't see beyond its application. I knew it could get me good grades. I knew it could help me land something great on a standardized test, but it didn't do anything else for me until much later, which speaks to the fact that any tool that you have right now, you may not know how it will factor in or how it can factor in to whatever it is that you will end up doing. But the thing is that it's a tool for the toolbox. So this last part, for being an educator, I just always felt comfortable in the classroom. I didn't fit in too many places growing up. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. But the classroom, being in school, I knew what was expected of me. I knew what I had to do well. And I held that near and dear to my heart. And it was something that I wanted to continue with in my life. Unfortunately, what had happened is that as I was growing up and as I talked about being an educator, as I said, I want to teach because I want to change the lives of young people. I want to help them learn from the mistakes that I've made. I want to make learning interesting, as it was for me. A lot of people told me, you're too smart to teach. You're too talented to teach. Kids won't respect you. You won't get paid well. It's long hours. Why would you want to do that? Leave high school and go right back. Everyone had something to say about what I wanted to do with my life. And that really got to me for a bit. And when it did, is that I ended up in a position where I was fighting so hard to fit in to those spaces that I previously showed you. I was fighting hard to fit into the world of graphic design. I was fighting hard to fit into the world of fundraising. I was fighting hard to fit into the world of performing arts and arts management. It's interesting that I still do that, but we're going to talk about distinctions between a career, uh, monetized hobbies and then just hobbies, right? Because just because you have a hobby doesn't mean that you have to monetize it. And I know that we are growing and living in an age where everyone is attempting to make money off of their interests, and it works. Doesn't mean that you have to do that. Sometimes monetization is what leads to you falling out of love with something. The moment that you take something that you really enjoyed and you start doing it for money is really a break it or make it moment. That will really show you how much you enjoy something. So the thing is that you got to have some things that are just for you. There are some things that you can take and that you can do, and that you can do all the time. And then there's some things that you know, have in small doses. Or interestingly enough, something that I think every young person needs to learn. Uh, now, just for me, this is something I had to learn the hard way. But when you are paid to do something, you have to answer to someone. Even if you're an entrepreneur, we can't even say unless. And the reason why I know this is because I've done some entrepreneurship with my videography business and filming weddings. I have deadlines. I have drafts that I have to get in. I have edits that I have to make. I am answering to someone. It's not just making stuff for me. I mean, if you build it, they will come. Yes, but still. So I say all of this to point out is that finding a career is finding purpose. And you have to fight for your purpose, because if you don't, purpose will be assigned to you. You can blink and not realize that you've ended up somewhere that you didn't plan to be, somewhere that you don't want to be, and somewhere that is hard to get out of. Case in point, y'all, failure is one of the best teachers. So I know I'm skipping through this a bit. I'm not talking too much about Goku and Dragon Ball Z, but if you know, you know. I'm essentially laying out this man's story as he becomes one of the strongest fighters in the world. It won't be a one-to-one interpretation, but it's getting pretty close. So it makes me super excited. But in looking at this, y'all, I just got to tell you, because I tried so hard before education, I knew I wanted to be an educator, but there were three factors. One is that I believed what people said about me. I believed the purpose that was assigned to me. I had to go somewhere else because so many people told me, right? That's what I had to do. Two, when I realized that doing what people told me to do, when I realized that following instructions blindly, and you know, when I say blindly, I don't mean that to a T. You can, you know, do something and feel like I'm really needed here. I can really contribute here. And you can work towards every initiative. And you're blinded by the fact that you're contributing, realizing that you're not feeding into yourself. You got to feed yourself first. And if you always give, you can give and you can benefit other people. But if you're not benefiting yourself, you're going to burn out. And burnout, like true burnout, isn't a good feeling. So for me, that was failure. Realizing that I spent a lot of time working towards, or rather running my way up a career ladder that I didn't even want to be on, because people told me that that's where I was good. People told me that that's where I fit. So with this in mind, though, is that you have a choice to make. And for me, like, I made that choice. You can make a decision. You can say, well, I really want to do the thing. So going back to the three things I said, people told me where I was supposed to be and I believed it. Two, at a certain point, I just didn't feel smart enough anymore. And what's interesting about dreams is that before you set up to pursue them, and I'm equating dreams to career, right? Before you set up to pursue them, it can provide you with so much pressure. Because the thing about dreams is that if you don't achieve it, if you fall short, you lose a part of yourself that you held on to for so long, right? So it becomes scary. So I was telling myself everything to not do it. No, I belong in these spaces, right? This is where I'm gonna do good. I'm not smart enough. I'm not as smart as that person. I don't remember this. I can't figure this out. And then three, really, it came down to finances. It cost money to make money. I didn't have the money to go back to school. But I will tell you this. When you have failed long enough, when you have failed enough times, and you know you've been on your back, someone knocked you down with a Gallic gun or a special beam cannon or whatever, because that's what happens in Dragon Ball Z. sometimes, you get sick of it. And then at one point you'll stand up and you'll go for what you want. So for me, that was teaching. And when I collected all those twos, remember, like, I went to places where people told me I excelled at and I did my best to stay there, realized I wasn't happy. Couldn't help but to figure out if I could succeed at the dream that I initially had, not of being a professional wrestler, but of being an educator, because I kind of had all those dreams at the same time. And what I realized, that as I took that step into altering my career path, to making that change, even though it was going to be costly to me in time and money, is that one, I knew that making a sacrifice to better myself wouldn't feel like a sacrifice in the end. And two, man, what was two? I was on a roll. I can't remember what two was. But in terms of education, you're never losing when you're feeding your spirit, right? So for me, in making this transition, even though it was costly in both time and money, is that I knew it would pay off in what felt like the long run, because it actually hasn't been that long in the grand scheme of things, right? Every day that you say no to something, every day that you say no to a dream or pursuing a career, pursuing your education, a degree, as Eric Thomas said, the hip hop preacher, every day you say no to something, you could be tacking on a year to it. You could be tacking on 5 years to it. You could be tacking on 10 years to it, right? Because if you don't start, you won't get there. So for me, that failure, understanding what it was like to feel out of purpose, to feel purposeless even, I never wanted to feel that again. And what that did for me is that it made me so hungry and so eager to be good at education, and not just good, but to be great, that I ran as hard as I could, just like Goku on Snake Way. I ran as hard as I could. I did everything that I needed to, and I still have a long way to go. But because I'm now in a position of service to my students, to the youth of the community, to their families, and to the community at large, I feel so much better, because I can honestly say that this is somewhere I belong, because it feeds me as I feed others, right? There's this one quote from a book that I'm engaging in right now. So I went from doing all this transition, right, doing all these different careers, and I had to start at the very bottom of education to make that change. I had to go like over to like whatever position could take me is what I had to do. And I had to learn in those positions. I think that's pretty much this slide, right? And no matter what position I was in, I made sure to find a mentor. I made sure to shadow them, ask questions, to study independently, and to learn, and watch, rinse, and repeat, right? So when we think about some of the people who we know that have succeeded, who have done things in their careers, who have made a difference, it's because they are a reflection of those who poured into them, right? Y'all get what I'm saying, right? People who have succeeded, people who experience success, no one does it on their own. I know that social media, and sometimes even like the world of athletics, right? I know that even with celebrities, or even sometimes with politicians, right? Is that those who are successful, who are in the limelight, may make it seem like they did it on their own, but no one accomplishes anything on their own. Everyone has had something, everyone has received something from someone, whether or not it was mentorship, whether or not it was adversity, whether or not it was criticism. They received something from someone that pushed them along the way, and they are a reflection of those relationships, just as I am. So through all those experiences that I had, I knew what it felt like to have someone tell me where to be and to put me in a box. And not because they were being malicious, but it was because I allowed myself to be placed in that position because I didn't fight for my own purpose. I was so caught up in the purpose that was assigned to me. Y'all get what I'm saying? Oh, come on now. I'm teaching here, right? Had to cancel my classes this morning, but y'all getting this lesson. So I had to cancel, because of the position I placed myself in. I was so eager for someone to assign me a purpose because I needed the affirmation that I didn't realize that I was being used. And that is no negative comment to any of the people that I have worked with and worked for, because I still learn from them, and because as leaders, they were doing their jobs with mentoring me. Right. One thing that I think so many people who are in the midst of trying to find their career, one thing that they forget, and I can say this because I forgot it and I learned from it, is that when you enter a career, chances are you're entering a team. And if you're entering a team, you got to be a team player, right? That's really what it comes down to. You have to be a part of the team, right? And if you don't like the team, if you don't, whether or not it's the job, it's the mission, it's the leadership, if you're not about any of those things, you cannot hold the people responsible who are doing the work. You joined to do the work, right? So you're either going to do it or make a decision to find someplace else that's going to work for you. And I bring this up because, there are people who each of you will come in contact with as you all either pursue your vocations or entrepreneurship or college, is that not everyone's going to make it. Can they? Yes. Will they? It depends, because everyone's track is different, and it is human nature for us to compare ourselves to each other. And in that comparative talk, it's really easy to complain without reflecting. So that's something that you got to be aware of. And for me as a teacher, because I've experienced all these things, what I have learned is that the best way for me to teach isn't to say this is the curriculum, you got to do it. The best way for me to teach is to be of service to my students. What do you need? What's the thing that you need to learn? What's the skill that you're missing? What's the emotion that you never had that I can give to you because I've experienced my journey and I can contribute to your story? Now, what's so funny about this is that I was in a meeting last night with some community leaders, and someone cracked a joke. They were like, Jamal, you always seem to make everything about you. So it's not about me leaving my stamp on someone, but it's about me being able to transition to this position of a mentor for someone who's in need, right? So as I referenced all these jobs and all these positions in which things did not work out for me, I do want you to keep in mind that those were some of the most amazing learning experiences for me, because it assisted me in figuring out where I needed to be. And that's just as important, if not more. So come on, we're coming to the end now. You see my man Goku arriving on Namek, ready to get down. He got these hands for everyone. And notice the new kanji, the Goku, the wisdom, the enlightened. Here's the thing about arriving. When you get to your career, is that mentorship will last but so long, right? You do the mentorship, you watch, rinse, and repeat, you learn as much as you can. At some point, you got to make decisions for yourself. So for me as a teacher, the way that has manifested itself is that now I'm moving beyond just providing my students with what they need. But now, are there other teachers, are there colleagues that I'm working with? And even though I'm young in this career field, is there something that I learned that I can help contribute to them for their practice so that we can all together help out the students and help out the youth that we're with? And the reason why I can speak with so much assertion, with so much sureness, and I don't know, in Dragon Ball Z, they would say probably like with such a high power level, right? It's over 9,000. The reason why I could speak with this is because I've done the work, I've done the studying, and I failed at it. I know what steps I took in order to not be successful at the thing that I'm doing, which means that I'm moving in the opposite direction now. And I'm doing so with humility because I don't want to fail again, right? So there's that thing right there, right? Is that I want to assist everyone in this. And as I'm learning, I want other people to learn with me. And if you're around people that aren't helping you grow, then that's something that you need to think about. That's also something for a career. Once you hit that moment where you've grown as much as you can, if taking on new responsibilities doesn't help you with growing even more, then that's where this whole arriving thing comes in. If you've arrived, then what's the next thing? And what's so interesting about this is that with the career, and I think this is my last slide. I know I'm going I know I'm pressed for time because I got so hyped. But with the career, y'all, is that you don't want to look at it as I made it, I did it, boom, I'm done, right? A career is something that's supposed to keep you enticed. It's supposed to keep you engaged. It's something that you can do not just for yourself, but for others. So when you think about that, is that the journey itself in terms of your career is never ending because there is always something to do. Here's one thing that I want y'all to realize, and this is probably not the best of news, but I've been telling my students this. So we're all in a pandemic. I know that school is so hard right now during the pandemic, right? But I want to paint a picture for you with academics and how it correlates to a career, because practice, as one of my professors told me at MCLA, practice makes permanent. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And right now we're in a position where so much is hard and things are so unfair. But what you get into the practice of doing now is what will become permanent in your behaviors and your habits. So the thing is that I know school is a challenge, but you're going to be entering a world where there are students who had the resources to continue free of that challenge, or who had other challenges, but affected them differently. You still have to enter that same space. The same is true for a career. No matter what is happening in your life, the grind is there, right? But don't forget about self-care. Don't forget about joy, right? And exercising it. Is that those are things that you got to do. But it's never ending. You want to keep it going because there's so much that you can contribute, not just to yourself, but to others, if you keep in mind that there is always more to do, always learning, always moving forward, and always reflecting on failures. Yeah. And this is right when Goku goes to GT. So I wanted to do a Q&A session, but I think I'm so far out of time. But I enjoyed y'all.